Greetings YouTube viewers and welcome to another video on the Ian Bullock channel. Today it's Friday, September the 22nd, 2023. And we find ourselves today on Queen's Road, part of the busy Inner Ring Road here in Norwich, Norfolk, England in the UK. Now looking across the road, this handsome building we can see is Sentinel House, which was opened in 1990, 33 years ago, as a major new office block for the insurance business Norwich Union, now known as the global brand Aviva. If you're a regular viewer of the Ian Bullock channel, you might feel that this is quite familiar, because I've actually made an entire video about this building back in January. Now, Sentinel House lasted for only 25 years as a Norwich Union Aviva office and call centre, and it's since been converted into 199 apartments. When I first uploaded that video, I had several people all asking me pretty much the same question. What on earth is that flipping enormous and weird Star Wars invader lurking in the background? I didn't really understand what they meant, to be honest. I know that Sentinel House has a couple of church-like steeples, but I couldn't really see anything even vaguely Darth Vader, let alone downright Death Star. But then, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I spotted the culprit. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is not so much the thing that came from outer space, but it's actually Norfolk Tower, one of Norwich's tallest buildings. I can only imagine that some of my YouTube viewers were likening it to the Imperial Guard's all-terrain armoured transport walkers, known as the AT-AT walkers. I've just dropped in this image by way of a cosmic comparison. Now that said, an AT-AT walker standing at 20 metres would have been only half the height of the mighty 45 metres Norfolk Tower. All I can say is that now you've seen it, you definitely can't unsee it, and I can pretty much guarantee that the good people of Norwich will now think of Star Wars every time they walk past Norfolk Tower. Built in 1974, designed by architects Furs and Hayden, and soon to be celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2024, Norfolk Tower is certainly a distinctive feature on the city's skyline. Right, so I'm standing now in Surrey Street at the junction with All Saints Green. Both of the imposing buildings we're going to be focusing on here were built to house Norwich Union Aviva's growing workforces back in the day. On the left, of course, we have Norfolk Tower, a blocky and hefty concrete skyscraper from 1974. And opposite, on the right-hand side, we have Sentinel House, an altogether more appealing and architecturally refined building from 1990. Let's call it Norfolk Tower's prettier and younger sister. Surrey Street is sometimes called the financial centre of Norwich, and historically it's been home to insurance giant Aviva, formerly known as Norwich Union. So we have here 1974 and 1990, and you can clearly see how tastes and fashions changed in just 16 years. From this angle, I always think Norfolk Tower looks like some enormous concrete aircraft carrier which has berthed in Surrey Street. This extraordinary office building is one of several notable examples of Brutalist architecture in Norwich. Back in the 1950s, 60s and early 70s, Brutalism was all about blocky, functional, geometric and unadorned expanses of concrete and glass. And although we associate the word brutal with all things aggressive, merciless and forceful, Brutalism, as I've explained before in my YouTube videos, actually comes from the French expression béton brut, meaning raw concrete. Norfolk Tower, 1974, I'd say was probably more towards the tail end of this trend for monolithic Eastern Bloc architecture. Reinforced concrete, yes, but maybe softer and less hardcore brutal. I just feel that the wraparound windows, interesting terraced layering, occasional curves and contoured concrete panelling give Norfolk Tower a more gentle, textured quality. And you can see quite clearly here that in this gorgeous September afternoon sunshine, the building has a warm bronze glow rather than cold expanses of grim grey concrete. Even that dominant service tower with the distinctive white lift shafts somehow has a quirky appeal, particularly when viewed against the azure autumn sky. We mustn't forget that Norfolk Tower, in its day, 1974, would have been an incredibly important and cutting-edge statement building. I was just a schoolboy of 11 in those happy days of Ford Capris, Slade, David Cassidy, silver platform boots, John Pertwee's definitive Doctor Who, spangles, and, well, quite a lot of global inflation, of course. When this ultra-fashionable city centre office block first opened, all funky desk phones and fellas wearing flares, everything else would have suddenly looked a bit old and, well, a bit rubbish. In 1980, and some viewers will remember this, Norfolk Tower gained fresh fame as home to the newly launched BBC Radio Norfolk in an exciting time for the county's media sector. Keith Skipper, one of the original lineup of presenters, was telling me this week that promotional photographs of the Radio Norfolk team were taken up on the roof of Norfolk Tower to mark the new station's launch. An incredibly talented and warm-hearted champion of all things Norfolk, Skip famously christened his ground floor studio Cell 33 and presented the popular daily dinner time show from there for 15 years. Radio Norfolk later moved to the Forum as part of BBC East's relocation. Norfolk Tower, of course, has been the daily workplace at 48 to 52 Surrey Street for probably thousands of office workers over the years, including Aviva and the RAC. People and companies have come and gone. I believe it was around 2008 that Norfolk Tower was bought by commercial property investment company MAHB Capital, founded by local businessmen Matt Bartram, John Maynard and Anthony Hunt. I really have to take my hat off to those chaps and the way they've embraced and enhanced Norfolk Tower. They've invested in it, modernised it, put their arms around it and given it a lot of technological TLC. Essentially, their commitment and determination has turned what could have been a faded and jaded 1970s concrete tower block into an important commercial centre, offering bespoke and flexible 21st century office space. So, having talked about the whole Star Wars thing, there's another curious story attached to Norfolk Tower, and that is the giant snail of Surrey Street, because I've recently spotted a couple of internet references to Norfolk Tower, apparently being well known for its snail-like shape and appearance. I'd previously never heard of that. Now, I can only assume that people are talking about this large 11-storey tower block section being the snail's shell, and the paler service tower being the snail's neck and head. The curiously shaped white unit at the top with various phone masts attached is presumably the snail's face. Keith Skipper, Skip, told me he'd never come across the Surrey Street snail tale during his Radio Norfolk days. And I also got chatting to the building manager here at Norfolk Tower, who's been associated with these offices for very many years, and the whole snail-shaped thing meant absolutely nothing to him either. Has anyone watching this video ever heard of it, or even thought it? please let me know in the comments below on YouTube. Rather than an enormous snail, this neatly geometric building looks to me more like a giant pocket calculator with regimented rows of push buttons. I'm sure I had the very same one moulded from trendy brown and cream plastic in my 1970s school days. Interestingly, Norfolk Tower is one of the tallest buildings in Norwich, joint sixth with Norfolk's County Hall. Top of the list, of course, is Norwich Cathedral with its lofty spire, followed by City Hall, Normandy and Winchester Towers, which are two mid-1960s blocks of flats, and Pablo Fanque House, the recently created student accommodation block opposite John Lewis. I do wonder, though, just how many people in Norwich walk straight past this unusual building every day and never give it a second thought. As I've got older and maybe a little bit more boring, I've become a great believer in taking a closer look at the buildings all around us, ancient and modern, familiar and unfamiliar, revisiting them, reappraising them, stopping, staring, seeing what makes them tick, shifting our opinions even. Now I know full well, of course, that there are many people in Norwich who'd be quite happy for every city centre building from the 1960s and 70s to be pulled down. For them, those were the dismal decades that taste forgot, and they'd prefer them to be conveniently airbrushed from architectural history. I completely disagree. For me, every building, concrete towers included, has its own place in the timeline of Norfolk life, in the history of British building design, in the rich tapestry of our fine city and its ever-changing skyline. Indeed, the more I've focused on Norfolk Tower, the more I've grown to admire and appreciate it. If you're in Surrey Street, Norwich, don't just pass it by. Instead, please take time for a longer and closer look at this landmark city building. And if you do, may the force be with you. This is Ian Bullock in Norwich, England, and it's September 2023. Thanks so much for watching.